Okay, hi everyone. Are you in the right place? Okay, I always want to make sure you're in the right class. Okay, so I love that we're doing a comedy panel in here. I feel like they're having a public safety meeting next. Oh my God, literally a public safety meeting. I'm your new mayor. Welcome. I just arrived here for the very first time. I'm definitely moving in. Okay, I'm looking at my phone. Okay, my name is Caty Borum. I am a professor and a person who writes about comedy and human rights and social good. I also run a comedy festival and incubation program called the Yes and Laughter Lab and Y'all Comedy Fest. A quick plug, it's in April in New York City, it's amazing. And so that is why I'm qualified to lead you through today's conversation. But the very first thing I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna introduce you to the full panel yet, but I am going to introduce you to the talent. And I have new reading glasses because that happens. I didn't believe it would happen to me, but it definitely did. I can't see anything. And I'm going to introduce you to, you are in for a treat. You are seeing stand-up comedy at 11 a.m. No one is drunk as far as I know. It's possible. Okay, I'm going to read the intro of this comedian. I'm her new super fan. I just came on very strong to her, so she might have to just get that out of her body. But also, she's from Vermont, which is so thrilling. How many of you have seen Tina Friml perform before? Oh my God, all the fans! Okay, great. Okay, let me do her intro justice. Tina Friml is a New York-based comedian, originally from Burlington, Vermont. Unbelievable. She was a 2019, it's a lot of stuff. She was a 2019 Just for Laughs new face, has appeared on the Drew Barrymore shows, Banana Moors, 2019 New York Comedy Festival, 2019 Limestone Comedy Festival, and the NBC. Okay, I need to calm down. I'm so excited about Tina. That is literally what's happening. And the NBC Comedy Spotlight Series as part of 2018's Women in Comedy Festival. She's the 2018 winner of Vermont's Funniest Comedian at Vermont Comedy Club. She's been a frequent performer at her home club, the Vermont Comedy Club, where she headlined her sold-out show in fall 2019, along with the opening for national acts over the last 3 years, including for artists such as Bobcat Goldthwait, Harry Condoboloo, Sean Patton, and the amazing Michelle Buteau. Give it up for Tina Friml, everyone.
Hi, guys. Also, I was just told this does not work. So, except for, I guess, listening devices, which, like, listen to how I talk. You should all have that. I love it. Yeah, 11 a.m. comedy. I feel like I should be selling Tupperware. Like, but thank you. This is so amazing. Like, I love being here on this comedy panel. It's amazing. I am disabled. You're going to be okay. Lock the doors. I always have to like say something about it up top because I know that like I come up here. If you don't know who I am, you know I'm coming up here hot, like looking like this, in heels. But then I start talking. Hey guys, I shouldn't say it like that. But I gotta say something, otherwise I get distracted by you looking at me the whole time like, okay, either she's having a stroke or I'm having a stroke. But either way, I'll just keep smiling and laughing. But that is the thing. People, they get distracted by this because they like to guess. I'm like a guessing game. Like, people think I'm either autistic or deaf, which is like naming 2 other Powerpuff Girls, okay? But I have cerebral palsy, okay, according to WebMD. So I'm Bubbles, okay? But I at the end of the day, like, the last thing I will say about it, I love being disabled comedian. Oh, I recommend it to all of you, okay? It's not too late. Yeah, no, fun facts, the disability community was the only minority that you will all join at some point. You're in for a treat, okay? I love it. I can never be a hack, okay? I can't do hack comedy. Nothing about this is relatable to you, okay? Yet. That's the thing. So I live in New York City because I work at the Comedy Cellar, which is this like very popular, famous comedy club out there, and they all the New York tourists, they're just expecting some other New York comic with their New York comedy, you know, just expecting me to get up there and start talking about horror stories about some messed up thing that like a homeless guy said to me on the subway on the way there. But the worst thing ever said to me on the subway in New York was like a month ago. I get in the car late at night, okay? Doors closed, you know? It's me and him. No parents, okay? And I look at him, right? He looks at me and he goes, "You good?" No. Obviously. I should have worn pants. That's the thing. It's like, thank God that I'm disabled, because I know you're not supposed to say that. But like, but because I'm not a very interesting person otherwise. Okay, if I was fine, I wouldn't be on this panel. Okay, I'd be in a Starbucks somewhere. Okay, like, that's the thing. This is the most dramatic thing to ever happen to me. And that was day one, okay? I got nothing. I'm like a white liberal arts college educated girl from New England, okay? There's nothing compelling about that. Taylor Swift took it all, okay? She took it all. But so, okay, this is a little bit freaky, but in an effort to become a more compelling individual for you, at first I tried to manifest. You know, I would wake up every day. I'm disabled again, and go to the mirror and say, "You have unique emotions, and complicated experiences. Your main character energy." That did not work. So I was in New York. I deep dove into the Brooklyn underground scene. Okay, as you can see. Okay. So the New York underground scene. I'm talking the punks, the Kinksters, all this. They're so cute. They're all from the Midwest. Okay, all of them. And it's so easy because like, you know, in New York, they have all these award-winning boutique shops and Fashion Week, but they don't shop there. They shop at Home Depot. Okay, they buy their jewelry at Petco. Okay. So the other thing, I tried to stir the pot a little bit. I came out to my friends as liking men between the age of 30 and 75. Why do you think I'm here? Yeah, they did not take it as well as you did just now. But yeah, they were like offended. They were, ew, Tina, ew! Like a dad? Like it's a bad thing? Like a dad? I said no, like an older cousin. I don't know, but so I've been trying to get out there, you know, with the dads. I love a dad. I love a dad. Like, I mean, this is great. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I wish more of you were bald. You know, I love a bald. I love a bald head. Like, here's all bright. This is like way too bright for comedy, but like. But like, imagine at night me staring into the darkness. I love a Mr. Clean-looking guy. It's just a bald head shining, like a North Star. So I love dads because dads love me. I don't know why. I do know why. I think, well, because I'm from Vermont, like, I grew up in Vermont in the 90s, right? So I grew up in the 80s, and we got a lot in common. Me and dads, like, we can drink good whiskey, talk about Gilligan's Island. We both have arthritis. I don't know. That's the thing, though. I'm into, I've been trying to get more eclectic, I guess. So, I mentioned this in the underground scene, in Brooklyn. There are a lot of kinksters. You know, you got the underground raves, the sex parties, all this stuff. I'm not kinky. No. Although in New York, it's not really. Choking's not really. It's like common courtesy in New York. It's like holding the door. But I'm not really kinky. I don't know. I can draw. I mean, I'm a theater kid. I can adapt. Like I can dress, but in my heart, I'm not. But I was trying to become kinky. Okay. Apparently, the best way to figure out your kinks is role play, according to WebMD. but like my kinks, I found out like very hard to role play. They're awkward to role play. Like, okay, you know the feeling that you get when you like embarrass yourself in front of somebody so badly that you think about it for years? Like decades. Like, you're going to go about your life wondering if they're going about their life remembering it as viscerally as you do, right? But then one day you find out that that person died. That's the kink. That's the kink. was mortified now. But they don't like that. That was too freaky for them. I don't know. So, I'll be okay. I'm single. I'm trying to get out there. I'm on the apps. I'm not. I used to be on the dating apps. I'm better now. But the thing was that, like, you know, all these guys, they know about this, but they don't know about this, you know. But it's not my fault. Like, I'll read all the bios of all these Tinder guys. It turns out a lot of guys say that they're open-minded, okay? I'm like, down for whatever, okay? I used to think down for whatever was a green light for me. I come to find out I don't so much need a guy who's down for whatever, but more a guy who's up for something very particular. But I mean, like I say, the nice thing about being a comedian, rejection just slides off. Okay, it just slides off. So a lot of people think when I moved out to New York City 5 years ago, a lot of people were preparing me for rough crowds, you know, unforgiving crowds. But by far, the most unhinged crowd remains to be Vermont. No, let me explain. So, I'm not a political comedian at all, but my very, very brief political comedy career happened 10 years ago. I got booked to do a comedy event for a comedy fundraiser for the Vermont Democratic Party. Okay, so I go to the Capitol, I go, you know, I do my thing, I crush. Duh, you know. But I get off stage, a woman in the front, she rises from her seat, beelines right towards me. She says, "Oh my God, I love you. So funny." I say, thank you. She says, "But I gotta say," she did not. "I gotta say, for the first half of your comedy set, I was livid. I was furious because I thought you were faking it." I know! I worked so hard on this character. Okay, but how good would that joke be? If I could somehow say that in like a normal voice. Anyway, so let me paint the picture here. So this is what this woman thought was happening. She thought that one day I, a comedian, get a call to do a comedy fundraiser for the Vermont Democratic Party. And I think to myself, yes, they're gonna love this shit. That's how I know that I can never win. I can make you all laugh, but there'll be one guy always in the back. Bernie will be in the back, just thinking, "Oh, she's not committing to the bit." You know? And the one thing that I wanted to know, this really happened 10 years ago. I wanted to know, what was the exact moment? You know? Like, what was I was up there doing comedy 30 minutes. What was the moment in my set that she realized? What was the moment she saw an authentic, you know? Was it when I spit upon her? The second time? And finally, she's just sitting there like, I love her. But, you know, I don't know. That's the thing. At the end of the day, I'll be okay. I get up here, I talk about all of this stuff, but, like, I'll be fine. I've been through worse, obvious. Well, no, so a funny thing happens when you, like, cheat death on the first day of living. You're kind of in the bonus round after that. Like, I mean, because I'm not really supposed to be here. Like, I'm not supposed to be anywhere. So I can just do whatever I want. I'm just doing side quests, okay? Like, I just, you know, I'm not even on this panel. They don't know who I am. I just got up here. I was walking to the bakery. What are they gonna say to me? No? They can't. They can't say shit. That's illegal. Thank you so much.
Devin Delliquanti. Sorry, still the reading glasses are fresh. An Emmy-nominated comedy writer who's written for The Onion, The Daily Show, currently on The Daily Show, and much more. Devin, welcome. Very excited to introduce Paul Zaloom, who is an American actor, filmmaker, and puppeteer. That's my favorite part. Best known for his role as the character Beakman on the television show Beakman's World. Welcome, Paul. Okay, this is like as close to feeling like I'm on city council as I would ever get. I'm right in the middle. I feel great about it. Okay, I want to open with a question for each of you because I think sometimes we think of, well, I'll just start with my little POV, right? So I was a producer and a philanthropy director for the lovely Norman Lear, who passed a couple of years ago. He was a part-time Vermonter, for those of you who didn't know that. He owned a home here. And one of the things that was special about that time is that if you know Norman Lear's work, and I would imagine many people in this room do, but he was always focused on the idea that I'm not thinking of comedy as a way to change your mind, but that I believe that comedy gets people to talk with one another, right? And so there's a lot of research that I've done on comedy and how it opens spaces, and a lot of people have written about this for a long time. I was not the first person with this idea. But the idea of comedy as social commentary, as comedy as a way to open up space to talk about things that are related to, as I like to call them, social, civic, and public health issues, sometimes that's exactly why and when we need comedy, because it can be really difficult sometimes to find a way in and to find one another's shared humanity, right? I often say there's a real difference between what I think of. Empathy is a good quality, so don't quote me on not saying that. Empathy is a good quality, but I always think that empathy is a little bit different than solidarity. Solidarity is sort of the idea that we actually are humans experiencing the world, and if we can find our common humanity, that's different than I feel bad for you, but I'm glad I'm not you, right? So I want to start with the idea that for regular folks, i.e. comedy consumers, right? Not like nerds who write about comedy, perform, make comedy. If we think about it, sometimes the main way that we experience comedy is through the commercial marketplace. By the time we're experiencing comedy that way, it's been, a lot of executives have had a lot of notes. It's been is the joke go too far? All of that, right? But comedy is really in all of us, which is part of why it's so fun. We all have like a funny uncle, or you're the funny person, or whatever. So we think of comedy sometimes as a monolithic idea, but there's so many different ways to do comedy. And part of what's cool about this panel is that you're all doing comedy in really different ways. So the question for each of you, I'd love for each of you to briefly, because I have more than one question, briefly, tell us how you describe, Tina's is obvious, but Tina, you still get to answer the first part of the question, like the genre of comedy, and how and when it was that you decided that comedy was going to be a way that you were going to say something meaningful. And by the way, sometimes meaningful just to make a fart joke, right? Sometimes we need that. So I'm not like a do-gooder comedy person. That's not very funny. But comedy that's genuinely great. So maybe we'll start with Paul, since we haven't heard from you yet. But the question is, you have many genres of comedy, but when and why you chose comedy as your mechanism, your cultural tool for wanting to say something meaningful?
I would answer that question, but there's a certain physical mechanism that needs to occur in my life at this moment. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to leave the room.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Paul, everybody.
It's an old man thing.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to start with Devin. He's ready. He's ready.
In the spirit of bathroom humor, it can be important at important particular moments in your life also.
Yes.
I just liked making things with my friends. I think that was sort of the entry point. There is just a spark that starts in you. I was telling the story to someone out on the street before the panel. I don't know if they were here for the panel or not, but they had to listen to my story. When I was in high school, I was in a science class with a very good friend of mine who I had done theater with growing up, and we had the option to either dissect a pig as part of learning about how science works. I guess that's part of science, is dissecting pigs. Yeah. Or we could do some other project. So I decided to make a video about the cardiovascular system using like Simpsons characters and whatever, and I got out of having to cut open a pig, which was great for me because I didn't want to do that. And I also wanted to do something fun. So that writing partner who I worked with, a guy named Mark Stetson, he and I then kept making things together and started a sketch comedy group in 2006, 7, 8, we were doing sketch comedy, and then everything kind of grew from there, and I learned how to make videos and how to edit videos, and then I got a job at The Onion as an internship, actually. I shouldn't say job, because those involve money, and this didn't, which I learned. But yeah, and then I got hired to do post-production work at The Onion, and then from there, every job has kind of come from that. VH1, doing tech things, and then I got promoted to do creative things, which are easier than the tech things, which is funny to get promoted out of a skill set that is seemingly more valuable. And then eventually I ping-ponged around and got hired as a writer at The Daily Show, but it's all that spark of like going into a room and cracking wise with your friends and trying to make them laugh, and anything that we do on the show is kind of a reflection of we're just trying to make each other laugh in the building, and then if an audience gets to laugh, well, so much the better. So.
Oh, I have a comment on that, but I'm going to wait for Tina's answer.
God,
Thank you.
Suspense.
Thank you for that. I know I'm going to say something good.
Yeah, well, for me, I've always thought of comedy as a language, and for me, personally, my humor got refined by figuring out early on in my life that I needed comedy to diffuse other people's uncomfortability about me. Because apparently that's my responsibility. And it was kind of like a way of, I mean, literally being like, hey, yeah, you're going to be okay. And I mean, you know, maybe to put it candidly, hey, I'm all there. And I wanted to have a conversation with you and get to know you. And that's kind of where it began, and it grew from there. It's comedy now being a tool that I find with what I do and a lot of kinds of comedy, even fart jokes, is a way to talk about the kind of outrageous things in life without making people uncomfortable. And a way to quite literally shine things on the dark bits of existence.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is there's such tension in your work, and then you relieve it, and the tension, because everyone's rooting for you. And, you know, when we see performers really rooting for them to be successful, and there's this tension, and the way you play with it, and the way you release it, and then it builds again, you know, it's really, obviously very unique, and quite spectacular. I mean, I just, it's super, super impressive.
Thank you.
I think Lord Buckley quoted Lord Boothby, said that comedy is the solvent that relieves terror and tension, which is so true, especially in these times when we are all terrified, and when the paper has zero good news in it, and we need relief from the terror that we feel all the time. And as it gets worse and worse, it's this is our thing. This is, you know, well, it's like the mafia. You know, it's like we chose this because we feel this is the way that we can deal with the world for ourselves. And then we want to present it to other people to create, you know, to have that tension, relieve that tension, and keep that cycle going. So I think that was a big motivation for me in wanting to do comedy, and then puppetry, because I can play all the characters, I can create worlds and environments, and it's, you know, megalomaniacal a go-go, basically. So that didn't answer your question, but...
No, it did, and the thing that I wanted to add to that, so I work with comedians a lot. I run a comedy festival, blah, blah, blah. And I work with comedians as creative collaborators on serious stuff, and just helping resource them to do their work. And like I was saying to my partner earlier, I love working with comedians as artists because your brains are different. Your brains work differently, right? And there's something I wrote about in the last book I wrote about comedy was, I went into a whole, I don't know, some of you might know this, but there's a whole body of creativity psychology literature. What makes creative people and how creative brains actually work differently. And there's one psychologist back in the 40s and 50s, I think Guilford, don't quote me on that. Oh, now it's going to be on the community TV, but...
You'll never hear the end of it.
Really, I don't know, but it's in my book.
Was it Guilford?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, sorry.
Letter writing, go to the post office.
But he said there's something, actually really, really creative people have more of a whole cognitive set of skills than like the rest of us. And part of it is the absolute ability to see the scenario, right? It's how comedy works, right? You see things as they are, and then you have a different level of thinking that allows you to then bend to the reality and make it fun for us. It's incongruity, right? But that creative people actually, from a brain perspective, have more of this I'm forgetting the word right now, more of this kind of creative wiring. And so I like to say that sometimes when I get to be with creative people and artists, because I think sometimes culturally we're, part of the systems that we've created are to make everybody kind of fit and get through the factory of school and all of that and don't be disruptive, but actually creativity is behind every innovation in human history. So you all have more of the creative juice.
You are setting us up as such geniuses.
I
We've
know.
All three of us have been sitting up here trying to think of the right fart joke for the last
Oh my God.
And it's just
Please.
the creative mind,
I-
like we're Sherlock
yes.
Holmes.
I'm
just like, when he got up, what's the right
at
time?
the end. Okay, so I have another question for each of you that you will answer briefly, and then I have questions for each one of you, and then I have a fun question at the end. We're doing great. Okay.
In general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're doing just in life and in this beautiful day. Okay, so I'm just reading my notes to make sure I don't lose it in my excitement. So how do you, I know that you're in the business, one of the things we always say to comedians that we work with too is like, you have to be funny first. If you're saying the most earnest thing ever and it's not funny, it's actually not working as comedy. It's just like a mildly funny TED Talk, right? Which is not the same thing as comedy. So, however, in all of your work, you're all saying some things that are meaningful, right? So you actually are doing this kind of work. So how do you each see the role and function of comedy for encouraging people to engage with civic, social challenges? In other words, why is comedy unique among the ways that we engage publics about our shared social realities? Like, what is it that you feel like is special? How does comedy function? You all answered it a little bit in your first question, but I want to see if you have anything to add there. Maybe we'll start with Tina this time, because you have on a thinking face.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you mean kind of like functioning as a civic duty?
Oh, perhaps. Well, maybe not duty, but maybe like a civic light.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I struggle with is people paying kind of the voice. There are a lot of comedian / activists, and I personally, a little bit of a hot take maybe, but like I don't agree with that, like comedian, people calling me an activist or a voice of
Just a comedian.
yeah. Well, in that, like, a lot of people, paint me as the disabled comedian when in reality I'm not. Mm-hmm. There are so many incredible comedians that have a variety of disabilities that I could not tell you the first thing that they go through. And I've always, I think I've always, when it comes to why I do this, it's a bit like you talked about, not to change any minds, but the thing that always is music to my ears is when people, I talk about a real experience that I have on a daily basis, and people tell me that never occurred to me. Like that I never, but now that you say it, that makes so much sense. I'm like, yeah, that would happen. And that's where the change comes in. I think that is, like you say, not about changing minds and not about jamming a narrative down people's throats, but really just adding perspective, I think. And we all have free will, so we can all, y'all can think whatever you want about any of us. But for me, that's I think my goal as a comedian is simply to add another perspective, and what happens from there is none of my business.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, and you know what? I'll just add a little bit to, despite everything that I've just said a little bit about my background, comedy, human rights, blah, 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 but I actually really agree with you, Tina. I think that comedy that is too explicit in like the finger wagging, I actually think is not. Like, there's one comedian I'm thinking of. It's nobody you all will think of, so don't worry about it. You won't try to figure out who I'm talking about because this is not a popular name, but there was somebody who I was following a little bit who was doing like overtly that kind of like activist comedy, and I just thought, I'm literally not even cracking a smile because it's so angry. You know, like I can't play along. I'm not like delighted. I just feel like, you know, but.
They heard you talking about them, and
yeah.
furious and calling you to
complain
complain immediately.
Yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
I love Tina's answer, like sparking a new perspective. So yeah, Devin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I view it. Anything that comes of it is a byproduct. That it's, you know, I think of it like a pharmaceutical ad, like side effects of comedy may include Civic, but it's like that's not what we're intending to do. You know, it's not like, you know. I guess
you're enlightened.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ozempic started as a thing that was supposed to be this drug, and then it
also
ended up being
diarrhea.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the joke.
Yes, I know exactly. Yeah. Comedy may cause constipation.
Yeah.
Only when you're writing it, but yeah, I view it, especially like the Daily Show. People will think that we are a vehicle for change, or that we're trying to take the country somewhere, and we come in every day to make comedy. Most days I forget that the show even airs. It just feels like a thing we have to do that day.
Just the job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's actually kind of an important way to approach it, because you have to have your own barometer of what works and doesn't, and that sort of guides you throughout the day until you get to the audience, and then the audience kind of grades your day based on their laughter. So when it comes to social change or anything like that, I view us not as... the metaphor I think of is we are not the ship, we are the lighthouse. That we can shine a light on things, and we can be like, hey, there's a bunch of rocks over here. Aren't these rocks weird? Don't they look funny?
Sharp.
Look at that rock over there.
Yeah.
But we're just like a weird, stinky sea captain sitting in a room holding a candle to a mirror. And I'm like, I don't know what the ship is seeing right now. I just know how to hold this candle to this mirror, and that's it. And to try to not smell like the sea. While we're doing it, so.
But at the same time, you can appreciate how important it is that you're at least shining the light, right? Because especially in these times, there is still courage in shining the light.
Sure, but I'm not a ship captain that's going to run aground either.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't want to think that we have that skin in the game, and I just am trying to put the candle into the mirror the best I can. I don't know why it's a candle either. Like, you know, I don't know how lighthouses work clearly. I don't understand the physics of.
No electricity.
Yeah, I'd be a very bad lighthouse operator.
Like it's not a flash.
Not something you want to admit in the Northeast, I think.
Well, a thin budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a money thing.
That's it. Yeah, it's a money thing.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I view it.
Yeah. Well, I want to turn to Paul, and I have a question specifically for Paul, and I wrote this piece in the other question, but I'll add in, like, I just watched one of your sketches from 1983 about FEMA. And that is from 1983 about FEMA. Like, you've been at this long. Okay, I guess I'm morphing into your question, but, well, I'm not really, but I'm going to repeat that. But yeah, just to add to you, comedy's sort of, not civic functions, I guess, if that feels too heady for you, but you have been doing overtly politically critical work for decades, right? So how do you see that as a way to like jam the people into like, please wake up, stay awake, or is it like, let's have some fun while the ship goes down? Like, what is it?
I think that particular piece was about civil defense in the event of a nuclear war.
It was very Mark Soul-like. Yeah.
Classic comedy premise.
Yeah. Look it up on YouTube. It's great.
I mean, the thing is, the government actually wrote the material for me.
No,
I would just.
No way.
Well, I mean, I would just read stuff.
You know, I actually learned from it. I was like, I don't think I knew how this worked.
Yeah, because it was right around the whole disarmament thing in the early 80s. And it was a form of cantastoria, which is film before film. It's storytelling with pictures. It's thousands of years old in every culture, where you have a picture and you tell a story, and that's film before film. It goes way back. It exists in every culture. Bankelsang in Germany and Itoki in Japanese. It exists in every culture. And someone would come to town with a painting and then sing or tell a story with a painting. So this is a paper movie, so it's a cranky, and I draw on the thing, and I can't draw, but I do it anyway. And it tells the story of like the mass evacuations that were going to happen according to whether your license plate was odd or even, and so all the people, the nuclear bombs are coming, everyone's going to die, so everyone with the even license plate leaves, and the odd license plate. So you see what I mean?
You're like, wait, what's my license plate? I don't even know.
So they wrote the material for me, and a lot of it was in the phone book, and I was just incredible. And so I played a civil defense officer or whatever, which actually doesn't exist. But anyway, I made a uniform, and then I had the paper movie, and then I would do the straight stuff and read the text and whatever, and then the pictures had the gags. So and that's the way slideshows have worked. I still do Keynote, PowerPoint style stuff. Because what's really fun about imagery is that when you do a joke, you can have the image drop in the exact millisecond that it needs to drop to get the laugh that you like and that you want. So we consider it a form of puppetry, actually, in the bread and puppet milieu that I have belonged to since I was 19. So we consider it a form of puppetry. So it sounds didactic, like I had a show about nuclear weapons launch procedures and the chain of command and authority. And that doesn't seem inherently funny, but it's so absurd and so crazy that it is quite amusing. And again, suffused with terror and tension. So I'm not on any mission. If I can just repeat the Buckley quote that I did at the earlier session today. Lord Buckley was the first modernist comedian in American history. He was extremely influential. He died in 1962. Lenny Bruce tried to do what he could do, but he just didn't have the chops. Nobody has the chops like Buckley had chops. And he was an incredible storyteller. He used street language and jazz language, black language. He was a white guy. And he would, and phony baloney English bullshit, and he mushed that all together and would tell the story of Jesus of Nazareth and Gandhi and Jonah and the Whale, and check him out on YouTube. There's no real clips, but you can hear his audio stuff that Frank Zappa released and all the rest of it. So Buckley said, "It is the duty of the humor of any given nation in time of high crisis to attack the catastrophe that faces it in such a manner as to cause the people to laugh at it so they do not die before they get killed." So that's been my philosophy. Or I had said earlier, the earlier thing we're doing, we're like a USO tour for the left. Everybody on we're rallying the troops because everyone's depressed and bummed out and super serious and humorless. And we're there to just put solvent on that and get people to laugh about what's going to kill them. So that's how I see my job. And sometimes maybe it's didactic. I don't know, but anyway.
Well, I'm going to show your 1983 piece. I teach a class on comedy and social change, and I was really happy to discover it. It's very funny. Okay, so I have a question for... I wanted to turn to Tina on this one. So, and I had just watched, to prepare adequately, I watched Tina on Jimmy Fallon, and she crushed, no surprise to anyone. Like, has anyone seen it? Yeah. So good, so good. Crushed. And then I checked out some of your other work. So what I wanted to ask you was, your stand-up work, I use the word welcome, to me as a consumer, observer, is welcoming people into your life as a person with cerebral palsy, something it's not embodied in all of us, genuinely don't know, right? And as you said, you now understand that is your job. But in a country that often treats people living with disabilities as truly invisible, right? So how do you view your comedy work in that regard, if you do? and broadly speaking, or the role of comedy for your own power and engagement, not only for able-bodied audiences, but also for disabled audiences?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite things about comedy in general is people think that to make relatable comedy or universal comedy, you have to be very vague and talk about airline food, airports, hotels. When what I found is the more niche you get, the more locked into very detailed parts of the human experience, the more relatable it really is. So I've been doing comedy 9 years almost, so not very long. But the more that I got into it, the more I began to see that while I joke about disability and having what I have, no, I'm not really joking about that. I think there are people that will see me and hear that, and then I'm a disabled comedian. That's it. But I think just as much there are other people that kind of hear it, and they walk away being surprised at how much they relate to it. Because all it is just going about the world feeling misunderstood or misrepresented by in my case, your own body. And I really try to lean into that. I used to say for many years, like, oh, I'm not a disabled comedian. I'm a comedian with a disability. And I thought I ate with that one. Like I thought that was being so profound. In reality, saying that doesn't mean anything. Like I think what I've come to realize is simply that my job as a disabled comic is really just to hold the mirror up on you, whether that be bring light, letting you kind of relate to things that you find misrepresent you that you can never get away from, or even just, I always say I don't have a single joke that makes fun of me. But I have a lot of jokes that make fun of you. and that's been the best representation. I think that comedy audiences are looking for comfort, but they all are also kind of masochistic, and they kind of like to be a little bit told off and put in their place, and because you got that's the only way that you kind of grow, I think, and find yourself. Okay, that's the answer. Cut, send, or print.
Yes. Yeah, I was gonna say the guy with no pants in the New York subway.
Yes.
Who among us did not identify with that? And on the New York subway, like, of course he didn't have pants on. But that's just how it is. Okay, I have a different question for Devin, which is, okay, the Daily Show has been, for anyone who doesn't know, was so groundbreaking when it first erupted onto the scene, late 90s. And it was really like a lot of the early articles at the time were like, this show is finally getting Gen X interested in politics. And that, that turned out to be actually true. Like, even though Jon Stewart, to be fair, always said, I'm just doing these jokes. I'm not a journalist, blah, blah, blah. I always maintain that. But it was a path breaker. Lots of new forms were created. My partner actually wrote a lot of books on this randomly. He should be on the panel. But so I don't want to say that The Daily Show was not around during turbulent political times, right? Like we were, the war, the protest, lots of things have happening. But we're in a really dystopian moment. And a lot of people, some of us who are scholars about comedy, like my partner, myself, other people say, God, it's really hard to actually talk about satire in this moment because what's actually happening is so fucking absurd that you can't top it with jokes, right?
Sure,
so I guess the question for you is just to, we don't have to get like huge political with a big P, but just to name probably what we're all wanting to think about, which is how hard is it to write great jokes when the reality of our current existence is totally absurd in terms of the situation,
Sure.
So is it hard? Do you all sit around and like, here's a great joke, that joke's not going to be funny anymore because that's really happening, right?
I guess I'll...
Is it harder? You've been there for 10 years.
I'll
guess that's the
I'll
question.
answer your question with a story, which
Yeah.
is I was submitting 10 years ago, like this minute, to get hired at The Daily Show. And a young upstart was running for president named Donald Trump. He had just announced in like June of 2015. And Jon Stewart was leaving The Daily Show. And every night they were covering Trump. And they were doing things about him running, what it meant, the fact that Make America Great Again was his slogan, and that was stolen directly from Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And John was having a lot of fun with it. And then the hair, and the orange, and the reality show, and the wrestling vibes, all that.
Yeah.
So I had the brilliant idea that if I write a packet to submit to this show, because they were hiring writers, and I don't talk about Donald Trump at all, I will immediately set myself apart. I will be a packet that they'll be like, oh, thank God this isn't a Trump packet. Because I knew there were going to be a million good and shitty comics writing all of the Trump stuff. And I knew John was going to be covering it.
Yeah.
So I was looking around for other stories, and I found that there was a fight for a $15 minimum wage. And the minimum wage was $7.25 an hour at the national level. Certain cities were fighting for $15 an hour. So I wrote a big thing about... Fox News was very against it, and they invited on the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts to talk about it. Sorry to disparage Dunkin' Donuts in New England. That seems like sacrilege, but I'm willing to say the hard things. And so I wrote that piece, and I had found a great clip on Fox and Friends where they talked about the travesty that the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders had to work for minimum wage. And I thought, we just need to dress minimum wage fast food workers like cheerleaders. And then I had a bit where they came out in their aprons with t-shirt cannons filled with Egg McMuffins, shooting them into the crowd, which is an easy thing to write when you're writing a packet because no one has to produce it and get a t-shirt cannon that you're going to ruin. So that was 10 years ago. And the fun code of that story is Donald Trump is still the president and the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour federally. So I feel like this is my own personal hell covering that, but it just shows like your story selection is part of it, the way you approach a topic, the things you decide to say, the things you decide to not say, the things you decide to not cover. That's a huge part of, I think, what we do, the way we come at it. And every day we could do the kind of Rolodex of whatever the same 10 jokes are about the Trump administration or Biden being old or whatever you want to talk about it, or Nancy Pelosi trading stocks. There are so many things that are kind of like in the in the zeitgeist that we can pull from. But I think what we choose to follow and target and the takes that we decide to have on it are the way we make it new for ourselves. Another example of something I was proud of over I think it was the first Trump administration, is a budget proposal came out, and it cut there was a huge increase in defense funding, and there were cuts for Meals on Wheels, which is a program that feeds old people who are hungry. Should be a no-brainer, right? And so in the writer's room, it just was a clear, oh, this is a perfect comedic premise for us, because clearly the answer is we need to militarize Meals on Wheels. And we need to put them in Humvees, and we need to have SEAL Team 6 breaking into old people's apartments and throwing them high, like, get on the ground, here's your soup! You know, like, that just is like, and we're not coming at it necessarily with a point of view or something, but it's just it's a great place to play comedically, and the brilliant Roy Wood Jr. was like sort of the anchor of that sketch for us, and had on his, army helmet, was going like, move soldier, throwing trays of food in. So, I think every day we look at what the landscape is and we try to find the funniest way to cover it. And, within it that you can point out the absurdity of giving money to the military and taking it from hungry people, but we can make that point in so much in a funnier way. And also it's just a funny way to do it. It's a funny juxtaposition of something.
Yeah.
So
and it could really happen.
Yeah, a long-winded way to answer your question.
Okay, so I think Paul I feel like I asked your question about, but I did want to highlight, can you talk a little bit about bread and puppet theater and why that is so meaningful for you? And does anyone not know there's no shame in this. Does anyone want to know more about what I'm talking about, bread and puppet theater? You're all Vermonters, so you actually know. That's an embarrassing thing that I just said. But why, I don't know, why do you think that is still relevant and meaningful, that kind of comedy?
Well, I wouldn't. Comedy is not the first word that comes to mind when you think of bread and puppet. That's a joke. No, it's pageantry, scale, juxtaposition of scale. The theater was founded in 1963 by Peter and Elke Schumann, and he is 91. He is a neo-German expressionist, if you will, so really more plugged into the George Groves, Otto Dix, Lionel Feininger, the whole Weimar aesthetic. And he grew up by the Danish, well, they were refugees, so they were escaping the Russians and the Allied bombing when he was a kid, and his parents said, you can bring 5 things with you and he took his puppets. And he performed for German POWs because they were in the British zone. They forced his brother to do puppet shows. He saw the bodies wash up from that when they sunk that French ship with all the POWs, the people from the concentration camp, the worst maritime disaster in history. Like 3,000 people drowned. He saw all those bodies on the beach. So these things had a very profound effect on him, as it would. And he is the most prolific puppet builder in human history. He's built more puppets. He's made more puppet shows than any other human in history. Now, that's not really something to brag about. It's rather an indication of his compulsion. Because while he's working on one show, he's already thinking about the next one and the one after that. So he's a compulsive creator. And we have a museum in the Northeast Kingdom, which is one of the biggest barns in the state. And it's got thousands of puppets in it, and I highly recommend it, and the Museum of Everyday Life, which is 5 minutes away. So if you have the time to schlep up there. So to have a mentor of his caliber, which is one of the most important puppet artists of the past 100 years, and that prolific, is like, what the hell do I do? And a lot of people who came from bread and puppet, they would then continue to do spectacle and parades and stuff like that. But I thought, I want to do comedy. And instead of making puppets, because his puppets are so cool and whatever, I said found objects because of Klaus Oldenburg and because of Marcel Duchamp and what's his name? Because of that, I thought, I'll take all this shit that the civilization creates, all this garbage, and it's so miserable, and then use it and animate it as characters and sets and puppets to make comedy. Because it was something so completely different than what Peter was doing that I felt that was something I could do. So I learned a tremendous amount from him. He's not a teacher. That's not what he does. We don't have a school, none of that shit. You just plug into it. Because this is what I did in college. I mean, I went to Goddard College. The first year I majored in vodka with a minor in mescaline. I'm actually not kidding. And the second, and then I hooked up with Bread and Puppet, took a couple of workshops, and that's all I did for college.
Oh, wow.
Was I just did, I was a member of the company, lived on the farm, and I wrote a paper about it, and that was and I got a great education. I was the only student at Goddard to graduate with a major in puppetry. So I was very, very lucky to fall in with this troupe because it's so disassociated from standard theater, standard puppetry, standard entertainment. It's complete, it's anarchist / communist, and so all of that combined just gave me a sense of how you could be an artist and make work unencumbered by a lot of bullshit. Yeah. And I thought what you said about changing the way people think about things, in other words, not changing their minds, but being able to see something from a different angle is really interesting. And I think that's a very important function of art. Like when I go to the museum, I kind of want the way that I look at the world to change a little bit. Yes. Just because it makes life so enriching and more fun. Yeah. So, that's...
Agree. Yeah. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask, okay, each of you rapid fire, and then we're going to open it up to all of you to ask whatever you want. Okay, rapid fire. The most fun or surprising or memorable thing that's happened to you doing comedy? Tina just shared one in your act, but like it could be an audience response or someone I never thought about it that way. The most a memorable moment when someone had a response to your comedy work, and it could be just in the fart joke variety. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be profound. You know what I mean? It could just be fun, or both. Let's start with Tina.
Okay. Well, so, this is just for fun. This is just obscene. But, very interesting how people, take my comedy and, like, interpret my comedy. And I was in, Montreal doing a headlining show. And we all know Montreal, cool, but, like, dark energy, and the Montreal slander. But so I right in the middle. I have a whole bit about how I would give love advice to my friends, and I would comfort them by saying, "Oh, like." There will be others, and like, he's out there, but those are just lines that I got from horror movies. And, it was that, and it was also combined with, the bit about, embarrassing myself and then someone dying and that being my kink. And I can't believe it. I pay my bills. I told that joke about having the kink be someone die and like doing it. And a woman in the middle burst out laughing. And I thought she was having a medical emergency. Like she was doubling over. And I stopped and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And I swear to God, she's like, "Oh, yeah, no, I love the joke." And the joke is that you're a necrophiliac. Yeah, thank you, yes. Yeah. Wow. So, I now have to say that joke. In my bit, I do a whole thing where I then have a whole nother bit about how much I'm not a necrophiliac. So, again, not very profound, but that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, amazing. Devin.
I'll do two very quick ones. I'll start with during COVID, when everything was locked down, we were still able to make Daily Show, and it was basically Trevor Noah doing it out of his apartment into an iPhone camera, essentially. And we no longer had meetings, and the staff writers, we didn't even have a Zoom meeting necessarily. We were just sort of typing into a Google Doc to make the show, and then the script would be put together. Trevor would then deliver it into his iPhone camera, and it would air to no audience. And at no point in the process was there laughter. It was just being made. It felt like a thing we had to do for some reason, and people would come up to me like, oh, I watch the show every night, and I was like, they put that out on television? I thought we just had to do that to make the days go by while we're indoors. And so anytime people said that they liked it or got any sort of joy or happiness from it, I was genuinely shocked, because it just felt like a chore that we were doing. And then the flip side of that is anytime, any job that you have, you get used to the rhythms of it, and I genuinely will forget that the show goes out on television a lot of the time. But when we go on the road and we do shows in another city, that to me is like the greatest experience possible, because first of all, we have a bigger house. So we're normally performing to like a studio audience of like 100 people, and you hope it does well in that room. When we're on the road, we're doing it to like 1,000-room theater, and that is the greatest thing, because you're having your normal morning meeting, and sometimes when you work on a TV show, it takes a year for the script to be written and then rewritten, and then you have to shoot it, and then you have to edit it, and there's such a process. Animation, forget it, it could be like 2 years. We can come in the morning that day and then write a show and write a joke, and it goes out to that audience, 1,000 people. And when you have a joke crush in that experience, it's like the greatest feeling. It's like stand-up or something like that. And I remember we were in Miami in 2018, which was also great because the weather was nice and we could go to the beach before. Great week. I think COVID happened because of how good a week Miami was in 2018. I think we were all collectively punished for how good a week I had. But it was right before the midterm elections, and the whole thing was that there was a caravan coming. There's a caravan of migrants, and it's coming, and it's headed towards the border, and it's gathering. It was talked about like a storm that was brewing in Central America and moving its way up. And there were two different lines of attack that I was seeing on conservative media, one of which was, these are strong young men, virile men who are coming to this country. And then the other was, these people have diseases, and they're going to bring disease into the country. And one of them was leprosy. And it was just very funny to me. If you intercut those clips, it's really fun to watch. Like, these are the biggest, strongest lepers you've ever seen that are going to come into the country. Giant jacked arms falling off into the streets. And so we were just laughing about that at breakfast. And then we went into the morning meeting. We talked, we talked it through, and everybody laughed. And then you do that joke in a 1,000-person theater when they're watching these things, and you play the clips, and there's just nothing like that, and you really feel an audience in that moment. So that the moments of the big theatrical shows on the road in Miami and Chicago at the DNC last year, those are like the best audience experiences I have. And seeing a line of people wanting to see your show, like, you really care about us. They really want to watch the show. And you get, New Yorkers can be jaded, or it can be a bunch of tourists from other, from other countries who English is their third language, maybe, because they have great education systems in Europe. And but those theater shows are my favorite.
Thank you, Devin.
Yeah, I was on a TV show called Beakman's World. It was a science educational show for kids from 6 to 12. 55% of the audience was adults. So it was Spielberg's favorite kids show, and I was on the cover of TV Guide, blah, blah, blah. So it had an impact here in the States, and people liked it. Then I went on a gig in Brazil, and I did a show at an anime convention, and there were 2,000 people going out of their minds, and somebody had to be body surfed out because they passed out. And then I played more gigs down there, and they booked me into UNAM in Mexico City, into a 600-seat theater. Then they said, we're moving to an 800-seat theater. Then they said, we're taking it outside to 6,000 places. And they said, let's add 2 shows. So I played to 18,000. This was my first time playing in Mexico. So what I realized was Beakman was this gigantic phenomenon in Latin America. Not like it was here, like Waiting for Sugar Man.
Oh, yeah.
It was that kind of thing, because I had no idea, and no one on the show had any. I'd go down there, it's like, what is going on? Playing on this huge stage with 6,000 people. I had no idea. So I think that qualifies as a surprise. But the other thing that was really amazing is people say to me all the time, I'm a teacher because of you, I'm a scientist, I'm an astrophysicist, I'm a surgeon, and you probably get sick of hearing this, but I'm a because of you. And I'm like, how could I possibly get sick of hearing this? Because we had no idea, it's like you were saying, you're making sausage in the factory. You don't really think about it being on the air. You make it once in a while, be up at 7 o'clock in the morning or up all night, and watch the kids show and go, yeah, that was pretty good. That part sucked, whatever. But you don't have that consciousness.
Yeah.
And then to go there and need 20 security people to get in and out of venues. And I told the story before of I was walking with the security people and my leg was stuck, and I looked down and it was a woman holding onto my leg.
That's amazing.
So that was a surprise. But it's great being able to have an impact.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very blessed that I was allowed to have that kind of impact, and it's an important responsibility. So when I go there, I have to give them the Beakman that they loved. Like, why are they so passionate there and not here? That I ask people, like, oh, you're so good at science. Oh, the show is so. That doesn't explain it. This is an emotional thing, and the emotional thing comes from the guy, me, looking at the kids at the camera lens, and the kids are sitting there, and there's no difference for them between someone in the room and someone on the tube. They can develop that kind of intimacy if you make eye contact with them, and if you have a friendly affect, and you're kind of goofy and funny, and that creates this. I mean, I did this autograph signing thing in Mexico a couple of months ago, and one guy just came up, he just wept the entire time. I feel really bad, it's like, I'm sorry, what did I do? But that's here, it's
So great.
nothing up here. And that allows the science to be something meaningful to them. And to, you know what I mean? We're using it as sort of a trick or a trap door to sneak that stuff in there, which is fine.
Yeah.
If kids got to learn, I think it's better with the jokes and the visual
Great
stuff.
story. Yeah, love that. Very heartwarming. When I worked for Norman Lear and we would travel for business trips or whatever, several times it happened. He had he wore this hat that was like his trademark. It was like a white bowler's hat, and
So pork pie.
Pork pie. Thank you. Jeez, obviously we had a very big age gap, but people would frequently come up to him and talk about how much his work meant to them, like, oh, because of you, my family talked about this thing that we never talked about before. It would happen all the time, and I always thought, I was like, you're not even like visually famous, you're not an actor, but people really wanted to share that with him. And to your point, every time it happened, and it was a lot, he was like delighted to take it in, and it was a very sweet part of him. Let's open up for audience questions. We have 8 minutes, or maybe 9. Yes.
I have a question about comedy. And we live in such a politically divisive world right now. I feel like people like, Lenny Bruce or Red Fox or George Carlin, comedy almost seemed freer then, before we had social media, before we had the ability to cancel everything so quickly, without the ability to be able to take things in. So do you feel that there's been a restrictive kind of overview to the freedom that maybe some other artists had previously, who were able to talk about difficult social issues, but now we live in a world where in the blink of an eye, somebody can just completely misconstrue a joke, but it has such potential consequences that we're often canceled before anybody thinks. So that's an interesting component of what's happening socially right now, in the context of the necessity of how much we need comedy and satire. And, it's the foundation of Greek culture.
Yeah.
If it was not for theater and not for comedy, everybody's heads would have off their bodies. But now we live in a world which is dangerous in a lot of different ways. So we need comedy more, but then there's this other component that's going on to people in and outside comedy, in and outside of every different level of things.
I think it's funny
Thank you.
thinking about it as freer then because Lenny Bruce would get arrested.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And George Carlin famously did like, hey, here's 7 words you can't say on television.
Absolutely.
I will write all 7 of those words
And
into
then
multiple jokes
Yeah.
every day.
And was arrested on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
and like
think-
taken off. Yeah.
As the
Yeah.
world is evolving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, I
yeah.
don't think it's
still an
anything
important question, yeah.
necessarily new. I think it's also a matter of pushing boundaries where you see them needing to be pushed, and also being very artful with the targets of your jokes and knowing how to get away with what you're trying to say, or framing a joke the right way, or saying, if I'm saying this versus I'm going to create a character who's saying this. You know, you can get away with more depending upon how you set that up. There's a joke you did that I loved, which was, I shouldn't do the voice when you did it. I thought that's such a fun, it's just so funny, you feeling that tension, and I think it's a perfect example of like playing within those parameters, and the more you do it and the more skillful you get at it, the more you kind of try to see where the fault lines are. And we have a saying at the show. We used to have a saying at the show that we say sometimes, like, is there a bus here? Which is, you don't want to say something and not appreciate the full point of view, the full scope of what you're saying. Essentially, you don't want to step into the street looking this way and there's a bus coming from this way that's going to hit you. And so our shorthand sometimes would be like, is there a bus on this thing? And we just try to see it from, know where the bus routes are and know that you can make the joke, but you just got to be sure you're on the sidewalk the way you're making it.
Yeah, I can definitely get away with more jokes in person. Like, that's what I love. Like, I have a big social media following, but I very much prefer live stuff. I can get away with more. I can get away with pulling the voice and then being like, oh, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of jokes never make it to my TikTok or Insta because the comments would fire up. And for me, the other thing that came to mind was how different platforms are, like Facebook versus TikTok versus Instagram. Like, this is not political, but the other day I put out a funny video where I was actually crying. Like, it was a moment where I was on Uber home crying. I'm not gonna get into it. Crying, and but the Uber I got turned out to be a party Uber, and so lights on the ceiling, like cash cab, and a karaoke mic, and like the guy blasting it, and like I put it online. It went viral. It got, I think, 130,000 likes on TikTok. On Facebook, it got 400 likes and a lot of annoyed comments being like, why are you posting yourself crying on the internet? And people are actually kind of going at me for that. So you can't win. So you just gotta do it, honestly.
I think the thing that's interesting about puppetry is that it's always traditionally been anti-authoritarian, that the puppeteers would be on the street hanging out with the pimps and the whores and the hustlers and the pickpockets. And when the commies, were running Eastern Europe, what does the theater director do? He can't do a play because they're Nazi adjacent, the commies. So what he does instead is he does a circus, in Poland. There was some director, I remember, so he does his play as a circus, and then everything in it is coded. It was all heavily coded, so people would know what the hell, what the metaphors were and all the rest of it. That'll be, next month here in the States.
Once the fascists
yeah.
figure out how to use puppets, we're doomed. Because they haven't cracked puppet technology the right way. They're always like, we're going to use the apparatus of the military in the state. It's like puppets is the real way to people's hearts.
Right. Yeah, and puppeteers can say things that actors can't say. That was the point I was half making.
Yeah.
So the authorities would see the puppeteer and doing the puppet show, and the punch would be saying something about the king or whatever the hell it was that was against the law, or that was, and the authorities, you know, just by nature of being the authorities, a little bit dumb, would see that and go, oh, that naughty puppet, puppet, because it's one step removed.
They arrest the puppet and they leave you like, don't look at me, man, he said it. And it's like in the cuffs, the hands falling out of the cuffs.
Yeah.
Like punch a puppet.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of a monster, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean the punch example is actually a really interesting one because it was first documented by Samuel Pepys in 15 whatever, and it had come from Italy in Commedia, and the characters are sort of the same, and the characters Caspar in Germany and Punchinello in what is it in Russia it's Petrushka, and in France it's Guignol. And the story in the Punch story is Punch and his wife Judy, she goes out, he throws the baby out the window because it's crying too much. She comes home, she wigs out, he kills her. Then the cop comes, he kills the cop. The hangman comes, he kills the hangman. Death comes, he kills death. And then the devil comes and he kills the devil. And then he's eaten by a alligator or whatever the hell it is. So it would become a context for political satire and for satirizing the state. And what's interesting is that's the play that's existed for, you know, hundreds of years. So my gay Punch and Judy show, it's Jimmy instead of Judy. I can't kill him. It's not because of political correctness. It's just the idea of someone killing their spouse. The baby, that's okay. I don't give a shit. Because that's, you know, I mean, I throw the baby out, he's swinging him by the leg and he lets go and he goes flying, the baby. And the audience, American audience, you know, they become very quiet. And so Punch looks at me and he says, wow, a Paul fell over the room. You know, it's a beanbag with a paper mache nose hot glued to it for crying out loud. But so it's okay to kill the baby, and then the cop comes and he's LAPD and he's bang bang club the whole time, so he kills him and he, you know, kills death and blah blah blah. It's all justifiable homicide. All the rest of them, you know, the baby is just, you know, it's a beanbag. What the hell? But I can't kill the partner because that domestic violence thing. I get the humor of it. I get the cathartic thing of murdering your wife, but it's too tainted. It's just it stinks too much of death. And so traditional Punch players will be like, you're an asshole, you should be doing the traditional play. I just don't have the stomach for it. So that had nothing to do with whatever you asked. But
Went different places. One thing that I'll just add to your question, though, is that I do really understand your question. I get a lot of reporter calls that want to talk about cancel culture, whatever, but I think I always want to talk about the other side of what the platforms have done, which is opened a whole spectrum of voices that were never going to get access to how commercial comedy is produced, right? Like classically in the stand-up scene, it was like you do open mics and you get invited back to open mics, you got to get laughs at the open mic, blah, blah, blah. Very closed, very gatekeep, you know, all the things. But so many comedians that I've written about and studied in the books that I write that said, if I did not have TikTok or Instagram or whatever, there's no way I would have even gotten started. So there's also an expansive effect, but that's all that I'll add. Maybe one more question? Yes.
Just want to know, Tina, if you've been on The Daily Show, and if not, when that's going to happen.
I know. Well, me and Ronnie Chang are
Love him.
good buddies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We work. I know a lot of the people at The Daily Show and some writers. It probably.
Yeah.
And I know. Well, again, like I'm not political, so like I always say that I got on Fallon because Fallon's kind of.
She wants to talk to a big audience, and so
Exactly.
she's shooting
And
above it.
Fallon and I have the same energy of like,
Yeah.
hey guys, cool, right? Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you ever need like a disability commentator, like, or you write a joke that you're like, I can't tell this, but I know who can.
Yes. I like it.
Well, I think that's our time, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you to. Feel freely. Thanks, everybody. Great job.